I'm Professor von Explaino. Welcome to my lab, guest, lab. I have other guests today. Joining me is Baron Cyrus von Borg.
Hello!
And a wave. So we had a question, which was finding out about the various flavours of steampunk. Some people were interested in finding out the different genres, sub-genres, sub-sub-genres, etc.
Yes.
All the way down.
Okay.
Would you like to kick it off?
Well, let's start with where most people seem to think steampunk came from, which is an offshoot of cyberpunk. Cyberpunk being a what's the forward of pro-futurist. So instead of retro-futurist, which is what steampunk is, going back into the past, but with a future thought, pro-futurism is going into the future with imagination, perhaps.
Futuro-futurism.
I like that, futuro-futurism. No, okay.
No, sorry. So futuro-futurism, which is the cyberpunk, which is taking what we've got now, extrapolating forward.
Correct.
Steampunk is looking back to look forward.
With what we've got now, looking back.
So basically a big spiral.
Yes.
That
So
works.
it's like explaining time travel, which you should never do. You should never do.
Just draw the curtain with a tiny and move on.
Okay, so there's steampunk, cyberpunk, clockpunk.
Clockpunk.
Very much like Metropolis, the movie, clockpunk, electropunk.
Yep. Would you venture Wild Wild West?
Oh, definitely. That's a clockpunk, dieselpunk.
Dieselpunk.
Because there's lots of trains and stuff.
Yep.
Dieselpunk. That's also slightly clockpunk.
Yep.
Although clockwork does feature quite heavily in most of the offshoots of steampunk.
So a lot of the steampunk, dieselpunk and clockpunk talks about this is how the technology drives itself.
Correct.
So if you're winding up a whole bunch of springs and intermeshing cogs, that's clockpunk. If it's powered by steampunk. Diesels. And then it could move on to the slightly more esoteric, like I like relic punk and crystal punk. If you look at things like Tomb Raider and the Aztec technology, or Egyptians.
Yeah, crystal punk. I like that actually.
Yep.
And then there's also Dr. Dinosaur from Atomic Robo.
Crystals!
lots of crystals.
And my very favourite of the progenitor of all of it is stone punk or dinosaur punk.
Like the Flintstones.
Of course, the Flintstones.
Yes.
Which actually works rather well, because if you look at the Flintstones and the Jetsons.
Yes.
Steampunk, cyberpunk.
So what we're looking at here with Dinopunk, we'll take that as the most recent example. So they're using modern technology, but they've found a way to use dinosaurs to do it, i.e. the vacuum cleaner.
Being the mammoth.
Yes, it's a living.
It's always a living for all of them.
Yeah.
It's a shame about the volcano and the meteorites, really.
Yeah, Ice Age. So yes.
And how about the dystopian versus utopian?
So where you're looking at the difference between, they've got a society that's going on that's all powered by steam and cogs and stuff, say League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or where everything's broken down and they're living on what they can find. What was that, Spell something from there's an Australian television show where they had magnetism and they had suits and they could do magic, but it was all magnetism. That was a dystopian where everything was broken down. There was no water or something. And
it's basically it's not steampunk because it's interesting. It's not steampunk because it's the future. It's steampunk because, oh my god, I need to survive. So I'm just grabbing everything which was then the super tech and finding ways to make it still work.
So in that case, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King is very dystopian. Diesel punk, a lot of that stuff's diesel and lots of that stuff's electric. So that could fall into that category.
Ooh, I hadn't thought of that before. Tesla punk.
Tesla punk? Yeah, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Very Tesla punk was the Tesla quote in the movie.
Yep. And, he's brought to life via electricity.
Yep.
Which is actually a really good comparison between steampunk being Tesla punk and the modern day.
Yeah.
Because modern day is kind of Tesla punk, because electricity powers everything.
Wireless.
The camera. Wireless.
Pigeons.
Wireless pigeons?
No, yeah, they're all wireless, except when they're sitting on a wire.
Ah, there's no wire. And then overclocked.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a shame. And now we look up. And we've brought vaudeville. Excellent.
Vaudeville punk.
Well, that's Agatha
Heterodyne.
When she's in the circus.
So I count Girl Genius as clockpunk.
Yep.
Well, it's clockwork.
I like clockwork.
Mad scientist. So there's some arcane punk.
Arcane punk. Yeah, that's almost crystal punk.
Yeah, I would say they're cousins, kissing cousins.
And that moves on to things like the alternate reality, because we've basically taken our reality and gone, well, what's before? Well, before electricity there was diesel, and there was clockwork and steam, da-da-da-da-da. But then you get crystals.
All the way back to crystals.
Dinosaur! But then you get the alternate reality stuff like gnomes in World of Warcraft, which just happen to use all of that clockwork and steam stuff as an aesthetic.
Well, they go back to the Dungeons and Dragons gnomes as well. The gnomes, they were engineers. So, yeah.
So anachronism powers steampunk.
Yes.
So,
and look, there's also the different flavours. Like you can have westerns, as in like gunslinger steampunk, as you see from the Tesla Rangers.
Yep.
Eastern. It doesn't have to be English Victorian.
That's actually key, because a lot of people call steampunk, that's Victorian science fiction, and that's so pigeonholing steampunk into, if it's not for Queen and country, and it's like, well, it's not like Victorian England was the only place in the world that had an 1800s.
Correct. Yeah, I like that. The Mummy. Would you count that as any kind of steampunk, or is that pulp?
Well, it's more pulp, because you don't see much in the way of technology.
And the airship with the jets.
That's true. That's the second one, though.
Yeah, true.
But that's definitely steampunk, that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm pondering, is it steampunk if it's anachronistic?
So there's something that doesn't exist, that didn't exist in the actual timeline that they make exist in the movie, book, television series, or comic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
I'll make an executive decision right here and now. I will say yes.
Your question is answered. As long as it's anachronistic, it's steampunk. Thank you.
Yes.
Good night. No.
No. I like to call it... No, that's not right.
You don't?
No, I don't.
That's
I call it late for breakfast. No. I like to call it... what if Jules Verne was history rather than fiction?
Yep, that's a really good one.
I like that one. And extrapolating what the 1800s would have done if they had today's technology.
Yeah.
Computers, cars, blah, blah, blah.